Dead by Daylight has been out for over 7 years almost and is approaching the year 8 cycle of the game cycle itself. Now, Dead by Daylight is the clear winner and clear mountain peak in terms of the horror niche genre in gaming. However, recent developments in the game have led to me questioning the future and legitimacy of the game continuing to grow into the coming years, and has led to me being worried about really the state of the game and what's going to happen in the future and what potentially could kill off the game if it keeps going at its current rate. Now, I've been playing Dead by Daylight on and off for the past 5 years. I started playing in 2018, and while I have not played as much as other people have played, I have almost 1,000 hours on the game myself, so I think I'm more than justified to voice my opinion on the game. And in my personal opinion, I don't think there's been a worse time or a time that I felt the least motivated or excited to jump on Dead by Daylight and play a game. Every time I try to play some Dead by Daylight now, within 2 or 3 matches, I'm bored and I'm finding myself wanting to close the game and play something else. For sort of a more veteran player and someone who is a supporter of Dead by Daylight, this shouldn't be the case for me, and I should be giving the game more time, but I'm just not finding the game enticing enough through the updates and recent developments that have been brought to the game, and it's not enough for me to justify spending time and seeking time into the game when I don't see the value in it that I once did. So why do I feel like this about Dead by Daylight right now, in its current state, in the first quarter of 2023? Well, I think it's quite simple. The recent updates and recent changes to the game have made the game less exciting to play and just made it more mundane and boring, and the direction that it's going in recently, I can't see that changing for me. Now, we recently had the developer update for March, the mid chapter for the Tools of Torment chapter, and there were a lot of sort of mixed reactions online within the community about this, with many sort of people happy with some of the changes and many others complaining about sort of Dead by Daylight becoming more of a competitive game and it's not catering towards casuals or making the game enticing for new players. I find myself on the latter side of the opinion, in that I think the game is becoming too competitive to play, and for a casual player, now of course I like playing sometimes a little bit more sweaty or tryhardy, whatever you want to call it, but I also want to play Dead by Daylight to relax. And I think that gaming in general, you want to come onto a game to relax and just, spend some time to yourself and just have a little bit of enjoyment. And Dead by Daylight for me has just transitioned from what once was a really good game with a good community to one that just is too competitive and too negative for me to justify or really want to spend time on, because I don't find the game relaxing anymore. I mean, with these recent changes, really, I don't really see some of the justifications for them, particularly the healing side of things and the Billy nerfs. But let's just start on the healing first. The healing is quite ridiculous that it's being reduced for the survivor part. If you think about it, really, some of the statistics that Behaviour released late in 2022, the killer rate in general is about 60% since their last major gameplay change, which was the Dead Hard nerf and other perk nerfs in sort of late 2022 near the Wesker patch. Now, for you to think that survivors need a healing sort of penalty just immediately, even though killers have a more, it's not hard these days to get a 3k or a 4k as a killer. Maybe back in the day it was a little bit harder, but the way that the gameplay was structured, although it wasn't perfect, it was fine as it was. And now to sort of take that healing advantage away from survivors and make it even easier for the killer, especially if you're playing a killer like Oni or someone like that, survivors aren't going to be wanting to heal. And so you're just going to play easy games, and it's not going to be fun for you as a killer because it's going to be too easy for you. You're not going to have any fun doing it because you'll get the same results. You'll be too dominant, and as a survivor, you're not going to enjoy the game because you're just going to constantly get killed very easily because of the healing penalty. It's just not worth it healing, and you're just going to have to adjust your playstyle, the way you want to play the game. You're going to have to change your builds, everything, maybe even the way that you see the game or want to play the game is going to be challenged by this shake-up of gameplay. And while it's not officially out yet on live servers, the PTB will be very interesting this week to see what really happens and how this is affected compared to how we see it just on a little bit of paper that Behaviour have provided on their website. To get back to the matter and actually address the point, This is to me just making the game too competitive for use, and the balance of the game, and everybody loves to say the word balance in this game. Balance is this, balance is that. Survivors think the game should be more like this, killers think the game should be more like this. You can't do this or that on both sides. But in theory, and sort of in my opinion here, the balance is being tested more and more and more, and we're gradually drifting away from a stable gameplay and a stable balance that is what may not be to everyone's liking. It's more than respectful and enjoyable for both sides to play the game, and this shake-up just sort of just drags it over to more than one side. Whether you play survivor or kill, it doesn't matter, but it just makes the game less enjoyable and less desirable for everyone as well. These sort of updates as well, especially ones that, you know, like the nerf to Billy's add-ons and that, who's already been nerfed into oblivion when he was one of the best and most loved killers in the game beforehand. This just shows a lack of communication between the dev team and the actual community themselves, as when was the last time that devs have actually asked the community and our opinion on the actual gameplay changes and content that they'd like to see in the game. Most recently, I'll just set an example of this: the DDoS attacks. The whole community's been banging on about this, that this is happening to high profile people, Otstava, Rapid Meme, Spooky Loops, whoever you want to name. These streamers are being targeted and they're being IP attacked. DDoS attacks, they're getting attacked and their IPs are being leaked. And yet Behaviour came out with a really bizarre statement the other day saying, oh well, we're not aware of these attacks, there's no proof of these attacks happening, so we can't do anything. Which is just bizarre, especially when the biggest people that with the highest profiles on your game are telling you that this is an issue, and a very major issue for one, especially with online security and safety, and then you're sort of dismissing that in your statement that you release. That just really just shows how out of touch you are with the people that love your game and spend time and effort into playing your game. Overall, the recent sort of releases in Dead by Daylight, the last few months and really the start of 2023 and the latter end of 2022, have really shown how the devs are just out of touch and sort of really just publishing content for content's sake, rather than actually taking an interest in the craft and making something interesting for the community. And that just leads me to believe that the future of this game is not looking as bright and as positive as it should do and as it can be. Dead by Daylight is rightfully the king of the horror games genre and is really got no competition at the top of it. Yes, maybe these games here at VHS, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, maybe they'll come and go and have their moments of fame, their 15 minutes if you like, but Dead by Daylight is so established now that 7 years in, no one can take this throne from Behaviour regarding the horror genre. And this really is a positive and a negative, because a positive is that Dead by Daylight will always be seen as the main thing, the main brand in this industry, so you'll always have a loyal player base to an extent. But the negative is that the devs become too arrogant and see it as, oh, well, why would we need to get Jason Voorhees into the game, or why would we need to release this really cool cyborg killer? Because either way, we're still going to have the same loyal core player base that we had before, and it doesn't really matter because we've got no competition, so why should we improve to a drastic extent? I personally believe that the future of this game could be so bright and so much better than it's looking, and that's because maybe I'm more of an optimist than a pessimist, but I also see, what Behaviour have done in the past to this game. Now, Dead by Daylight's not in a great state now, but there have been some great moments. Think of some of the licensed chapters and the actual content and gameplay updates that we've received in the past. Think about Michael Myers coming to the game. Think about, some of these chapters. The Ghostface chapter was exceptional. The Stranger Things chapter changed the game. The Silent Hill chapter was incredible. The Resident Evil first chapter also brought the most popularity into the game that we've ever seen. The Wesker chapter was amazing. There are some great, really, pieces of history in Dead by Daylight that have occurred, but it seems that the path we're going on now is more of a decline rather than an incline, and that while Dead by Daylight is not going to die anytime soon, because the fact is the king of the industry is Dead by Daylight in this field, it does make it sort of seem that everything that is happening and going on with the future is half-hearted. I'll be honest, I'm not even excited for the anniversary chapter in June or the event itself, because I'm just expecting something so low and below par now, because if you look at two of the most recent chapter releases, it have been back-to-back stinkers in terms of content. The Night is a cool idea, but again, poorly executed, and it just feels like, sort of a half-assed attempt by the devs just to get some content out there. And then the Skull Merchant, I mean, what is that? That is a complete waste of potential there. The teaser sets it up for a brilliant idea of a cyborg, sort of very interesting niche sci-fi killer that we've not really had anything sci-fi since Stranger Things in this game, and yet you disappoint with just a lady with sort of like a cyborg robotic little mask and some drones as a power. So that's just making me feel that, oh, this anniversary chapter, you know, oh, we're not going to get something big. We're not even going to get something like a decent niche license or anything like that. We're probably going to get something that no one in the community is actually, you know, pushing for. So don't expect to see anything like Jason or like Springtrap or like even Alien or Predator. Don't expect to see any of these big licenses come into the game, because the bar is so low now that Behaviour feel like they can get away with anything. This lack of effort from Behaviour recently is just making me feel that in the next coming months, and for the rest of this year at least, and maybe into the next few years of Dead by Daylight, the gameplay is just going to remain stale, and the things that are fun about this game are just going to be nerfed even more, and just basically we're going to reach a point in this game in maybe 1 or 2 years, maybe a little bit later, where just everybody's so frustrated with the game that Behaviour are just going to have to change the complete direction of the game and listen to the community themselves, or the game will eventually just die out quicker than it should do. We're going to see more meta changes like the one that we're seeing in the PTB and gameplay changes, where things are just drastically nerfed, and sometimes things are just unnecessarily nerfed, and then Behaviour will just create the same sort of content that we always sort of get nowadays. You know, the maps will be boring and just, you know, the same sort of structures that we normally play on now, and the content will just be lukewarm at best and only sort of appeal to maybe 25% of the community, and not be a star-studding, like sort of deal-breaking, groundbreaking sort of piece that we can get behind. This will lead to seeing popular players of this game, maybe even high-profile streamers and content creators, venturing out to different games. I mean, you have people like Ozdava who are, you know, in love with your game and love your game to the death, and will always provide content for your game no matter what. But even people like him are now starting to question the actual, you know, direction that the game's going into. I mean, the PTB the other day was so bad, sort of the gameplay changes that are going to be coming to the PTB, that he even made a video about it, questioning it. And when you have probably your most passionate player on the game and most recognizable figure, and probably a reason why quite a lot of people in the community actually still actively watch or get involved in the game itself, you know, this is a negative for you, because you have to produce something that really, you have to actually communicate as well with your top people in the game. You know, these people are fog whisperers for a reason. You don't just, you know, make them a title just for a title's sake. You should listen to them about their sort of concerns and positives about your game to reach the best solution for everyone. So unless we see some more transparency from Behaviour through surveys, through, you know, just replying to the community in general, giving the community more of a voice in sort of game direction, game changes, content that they'd like to see, etc., you know, map changes, whatever it is, then you need to sort of, you know, listen to it. But if they don't, which is what is looking likely in the path that they're going on now, you're just going to keep seeing for the next couple of years stale gameplay changes, stale metas, stale shake-ups, and just stale content with the odd little bit of sprinkling of stardust here and there with maybe a license or a nice little, you know, winter event or Halloween event. But for the most part, the game's just going to reach a conclusion where it's just no longer to play, you know, no longer fun to play for really anyone anymore, and then the game will die out quicker than it's expected. Just think about some of the changes that we've had in the history of this game. You know, perks that maybe were frustrating, like Decisive Strike and Dead Hard in the past, have been nerfed to such a level now that really, what is usable in this game anymore? You know, the meta's so different to how it was, and maybe some people could counter that and say, oh, the meta needs to be changed and shaken up every once in a while, but the game's so different to how it was even a year and a half ago, 2 years, that really it's unrecognizable, and it's moving more towards the comp scene, and it's just disappointing to see now, because perks like Dead Hard and Decisive in particular, while they were annoying to play back then, I think a lot of people now would take that meta back in a heartbeat compared to what we have in current day DBD, which is just not fun, repetitive gameplay. Every match that you go into just feels the same. It just feels like you're just repeating a cycle, not really improving or doing something new or something maybe you know didn't expect to happen in the game. It just feels like a cycle, and eventually people are going to burn out from this, and they'll have enough, and then behaviour will either have to stand up to the questions or accept that their game's dying and move on. If we look at the actual content in the game itself, if behaviour wants to continue growing this game to a level that is sustainable and above the level that it's currently at now, which, let's be fair, is definitely doable and more than achievable for a company of that size who have already grown this game to this level now, you have to make your sort of non-licensed content free after a certain period. Now, I've seen other creators go on about this in other videos, but if you think about Dead by Daylight, you know, it is such a pay-to-win game. The scheme of it, all the good perks or all the good stuff, the character abilities, the killers, etc., all are behind a certain paywall, even if they are original characters. You have to buy Auric cells, or you have to play a lot of the game to even get 9,000 shards to buy one character. And I just really think that these sort of free characters, or who are meant to be sort of original or free, if you will, after you grind a certain time, I think that maybe the Knight, you know, some of these sort of characters, they need to be free after a certain period of you playing the game. Otherwise you're just going to get bored. And this is the problem for the growth of the game and why the future's so bleak, is that new players who want to get involved in Dead by Daylight, say you see it, you say you're on YouTube and this just comes up and you're recommended to watch a Dead by Daylight video and you think, whoa, that's a really cool game, let me get involved in that. And then you start playing and then you see, oh, why do I have none of the characters? Why are all these characters? Why does it take me so long to even get these characters? Why should I even bother playing the game if I'm not going to be able to even unlock these within a short period? It can take months, weeks, months to get even just a couple original characters and perks, and then you'll still not even be on the level playing field as everyone else. So the problem there is that the game's too pay to win in general, and you need to make your content free after a certain period for these newer players to entice them to keep playing. And that's the way that you should be growing your game. But instead you're bringing out stale changes to your meta, stale changes to just your content in general, and then you're not being responsive enough with the community and listening to the feedback enough. Okay, maybe you'll say, oh yes, we're aware of this here and we're aware of that there, but you're not bringing enough exciting things to the game to want it to sort of elevate it to the next level of which it's capable of being. I have this vision of Dead by Daylight where every license is in this game, you know, Jason, Springtrap, Stranger Things returns, etc. They keep Bubba for a long period, they have Michael Myers, they have all the icons of horror, the gameplay is so smooth and perfect, the meta's, you know, sort of generally liked by everyone. Both sides of Survivor and Killer are getting on with each other and don't call each other out unnecessarily for gameplay or how the way they play, but that's just unrealistic and unachievable because behavior as a developer have shown no signs of just going towards this path. And unless this changes, we're going to go down a path where the game is just dead by 2026 or 2025, and we'll have to move on, and then behavior will have nothing to vouch for. It was maybe too much of a rant maybe, but I'm just frustrated at the state that the game is in, and when you are frustrated you have to voice your opinion, unfortunately, and we need to be heard. So let me know down in the comments if you agree with my perspective, or if you like Dead by Daylight and the direction that is going in, let me know why, and then let's have a debate in the comments.